Welcome to the SunDried Tomatoes Podcast. I'm your host and creator, Anthony Oates. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can find the audio-only version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher, pretty much anywhere podcasts are found. Please follow, download, and subscribe where applicable. For those listening to the audio version, I have a video version on the SunDried Tomatoes YouTube channel. You can also subscribe there and check out some of the other shows that I have that will feature sports, brewing, sometimes food, some music, including my original series that I have out there right now, Legends of the Diamond, Brewing the Facts, and of course, Random Reactions, a show where I talk about a news story from the past week and give my take on it in interesting ways. The second part of season 2 of Random Reactions will be out later this year, along with new seasons of Legends of the Diamond and Brewing the Facts. You can also follow me on Instagram at eclectic_Yotzo. So that's ECLECTIC_IOZZO. I'll have updates, teasers, and short videos to go with all my YouTube content. Plus, you might be able to get to know me a little bit better as well. Of course, this is kind of a special episode as it's my 12th episode. So it completes a full year of podcasts, which is pretty amazing. And one of my previous guests, my stepbrother, Marc Lopez, he's back on here. If you remember from last time, Marc is a hip hop lyricist and performer, as well as a recreational sports player to go along with his day job, of course. We have done many projects together. And in this episode, Marc may bless us with some random freestyle from some of the beats I've made recently. Or some edits of beats as well. We'll also just talk, music in general, our favorite shows, shows we've been to, what artists / shows we would see if we can travel to any point in time, etc. Things like that. So thanks for coming back on, man. What's going on?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me again. I feel like it's like Will Smith. Thanks for having me.
yeah. Just no slaps. No slaps.
Not like I'm slapping people, but anyways, it was just convenient with the whole current events going on. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'm just chilling, living. LIVIN. All right.
Absolutely, man. So so let's jump right in here with some of our favorite shows. I have several from single concerts to festivals and things like that. Some big, some small. Let's go back and forth here, just so that we could kind of keep the conversation moving that way. So I'll start with a show that I went to in Chicago on December 12th, 2009. I actually lived in Madison at the time, but me and some friends traveled back to Chicago to go to this. It was the second annual Chicago Blues and Bluesgrass Festival at the Congress Theater in Logan Square. I'm sure you've been there. Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting theater because it's like an historic place, so it's kind of an old place. But there were a lot of good blues acts at this thing. Dr. Dog, he was there. His show was pretty fun. Some other bands, I didn't know, but just good stuff, good guitar riffs, it's blues. But Bella Fleck and the Flecktones headlined, and yes, I'm talking Future Man with his crazy drum synth thing that he's got, Victor Wooten, Bella Fleck. At the time, Jeff Coffin was on saxophone. Hilariously, they were doing their Christmas album. I don't know if you ever heard of it. Jingle All the Way is what it's called. You think, Christmas album, that sounds kind of lame, but, that's... If you know the band, it's a folky, kind of a jazzy, funky, blues, grassy style, and they did all these covers of Christmas songs. So when you have like these some of the best musicians in the world doing these things and putting their own twist on them, it's pretty fun to see. You have Future Man with like I said, I don't know if you know Future Man, but he's got this crazy synth drums an axe that he made. It looks like a guitar that he made. It looks like he's got it duct tape. He's had this thing since forever. It's really weird. He's got buttons, a couple of buttons, and there's no actual drummer to Bella Fleck. So if you ever hear any of their songs, all the drums is coming from Future Man playing this ridiculous axe that he has. And I say ridiculous only because it's insane, but it's awesome, you know, like it, and it's got synth sounds and stuff too. Like, man, like every time I see it, I'm like, I want to make that. Like, that looks super cool. Like, I could just show up at your house and be like, dude, I got this awesome drum axe. Let's do some stuff. Like, just right on your couch doing some drums, you know? Like,
did he like, is there a name that he like his invention or something, or it's like first ever instrument? Or?
It's he just calls it a synth drums axe. He's like kind of one of those, like, he calls himself Future Man, so like it's kind of one of those things. But yeah, it is unique. Nobody else has it, but he didn't market it. Like, it's not like he's making many. Like, he just made it for himself and has used it ever since, and no one else does. And like, you know, it's technology I don't think he shared with the world. You know? Like,
so he was just like keeping it together with duct tape.
It looks like it's glued and duct taped. It's amazing. Like, every time I see it, I'm just like, this thing is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Like, you know, it makes me, there was a time I had this crazy guitar. It was this broken guitar, like it was like a plastic back. Oh man, do you remember that guy, like Esteban or something? He would go on like late night TV, like infomercials, and he'd talk about buy my guitar, and you could like learn how to play the guitar. Like, it was like one of those guitars, but like, you know, it was left from like one of my ex-girlfriends, and like, it was just like this weird thing, and I had it, and I was like, I could probably find a use for this thing. So what I did was like it was cracked, so you couldn't really restring it and have the strings be in tune. So what I did was I just like added like a little tambourine to it, and like I just kind of used it as like a weird like string drum thing where I'd like drum on it and like make crazy beats with it. And I put it on some tracks, like you know, I would probably have to point it out to which tracks I put it on, because you wouldn't know, but I've definitely put it on a bunch of tracks. Like, and on my album Adventurous, like it's on like multiple tracks on that one. Like, you know, it's
is it like a sitar type of sound, or like
it's because like so like the way I made it, like it was like you have the tambourine sound, so that kind of gives you like that kind of almost bongo with a little bit of like a cymbal type sound, especially when I tweak it and when I'm mastering it. But like, when you're drumming on the strings, like it sometimes gives you like a guitar sound, but at the same time, it kind of gives you like that Rage Against the Machine, like when, like, you know, Tom Morello is just kind of scratching the strings and like making a beat that way, you know, like, right. Like, so I was like, this sounds pretty sweet. Like, so I just started using it. So I'm good. So, you know, I've done that, but like this thing, I see it and I'm like, man, that's like way above my pay grade. Like, you know, it's future man knows what's up, you know.
So he did a few like ballads from their Christmas album, or
yeah, so it's like they did their album itself, like they have like covers, all these things. It's actually really fun because they're the kind of musicians that like to branch out and find different ways to make music. So, you know, you have, you know, Bella Fleck's one of the best banjo players, like probably of all time, like especially in the modern era. Like, there's probably random people that are like awesome or just as good or better, but like, you know, in terms of modern that we know, like he's definitely one of the best. And Victor Wooten's like one of the fastest and best bass players as well. So like you kind of add them into it. You got Future Man doing this thing, and then Jeff Kaufman. Like for an example, it's like you're doing a simple song, like you know, like Linus and Lucy or something, and then like Jeff Coffin will come on with like a saxophone solo, but he's literally playing an alto sax and a soprano sax at the same time, like just two saxophones in his mouth, like, you know, like just going nuts with like a crazy solo.
Double saxing.
Yeah. Exactly. Like and when you see it live, it sounds awesome, and then but when you see it live, you're just like in awe. You're just like, what? Like, who does that? Like, who plays two and when an alto and a soprano sax have a different sound too, so it's just like he's doing two different things but at the same time. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy to think. But they for like Jingle Bells, they brought in these Tuvan throat singers. And they worked with them before on some of their other jazz albums. if you don't know, like Tuvan throat singing is it also is called Mongolian throat singing. It's like from the Mongolian region, but it's from like this specific Republic of Tuva in Mongolia, in China. It's like it's in that region over there. And it's a form of singing that they use a bunch of different techniques, but essentially they generate sounds with their larynx. And they generate more than one pitch. So like with their voice, it sounds like a weird instrument. So they're able to like sing a song, but it like, just by singing this song, it sounds like they have a whole band of like, maybe like string guitars and things like that. Like it's kind of crazy sounding. So it's like they bring them on for Jingle Bells and you're just like, wow. And when you see it live, these guys come out and they're super jacked because, clearly they're from that region and they're like, now they're in the United States playing with Bella Fleck in a Chicago Blues and Bluesgrass Festival. Like, these guys they're literally in like monk robes and stuff because they're from that area of Mongolia where like, they kind of live a simple life. And then all of a sudden they're at this awesome venue playing some crazy stuff. Like it was really fun. Like, and like, clear, like me and my friends were having a good time, like we actually, we came out there, stayed at the Congress Hotel, like, so we like kind of made it a whole experience. And then we went to this show and just kind of like, had some scotch and had a good time. It was good stuff. It was definitely memorable. Not to mention when we were leaving, there was this random dude, and this is before Uber and stuff. There's this random guy, like we were trying to hail a cab and this guy was like, "Oh, I'll take you back to your hotel." And we were like, "Wait, you're not a taxi driver. Get out of here." Like, what?
Guys like kidnapping people or what?
Maybe. To be honest, I kept looking online to see if there was another serial killer in Chicago. Like I was like, did we save our lives like by saying no? Like, you never know. He could have just been looking to make extra cash. Maybe he was the guy that started Uber. I don't know. Like
his name was Uber.
Exactly, man. So
that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's so it's definitely memorable for many reasons, but it's good. And if you like that kind of crazy jazzy stuff, like I recommend seeing Bella Fleck because if they ever are in town, because it's just such a unique show. It's fun. But now switching to you, man. Like, so let's talk about one of your most memorable shows that left something for you.
Well, I chose this one because it's probably the first concert I ever even been to, ever. And that was like my freshman year. And I went to go see Silverchair. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're an Australian rock band back in the 90s. So this was probably like 1996. I was a freshman in high school. This was still like in the grunge alternative rock era. And I was all into that, Nirvana and all that. And I believe Silverchair, the lead singer, Daniel Johns, was highly influenced by Kurt Cobain and listened a lot with Nirvana and all that. So he was a huge fan of them.
Yeah.
And you can see the influence in it in their music and whatnot. It's really good. I liked it. Like I said, I don't know if you ever heard of their stuff. But I remember I made some friends in high school, and a sophomore I had in Spanish class, like he actually introduced Silverchair to me, and he like recorded a tape and he listened to it because there was a show coming up, and I think he had like an extra ticket or something. But anyways, I ended up going to that show with him and a bunch of friends. This was at the Vic on Belmont and Sheffield.
Oh yeah, that's a good venue.
Yeah, the Vic is a cool venue. Sometimes I think they like show movies there. Different random stuff. But yeah, I haven't been there in years, decades. But that was like the first ever show. I remember going there, all decked out, my grunge clothes, like ripped jeans, like my Airwalks, and my chain like connected to my wall.
The chain was awesome. They should bring that chain back, man.
The chain was awesome. Like I don't even know where the chains went. Like maybe your brother Mike took them from me.
Hey man, like the chain too. It was practical. Like you weren't gonna lose your wallet.
No, totally. Yeah, it was good, like security for your wallet. Like it was totally attached. And I remember people just going to like pet stores, like to get like dog chains, like use this wallet chains. I don't know, but it was a fashion thing at the time. And, that's what I did. I was all grunged out, waiting in line. It was in the wintertime, I believe, because I remember it being chilly out.
Yeah.
I had like a light jacket and like waiting in line, like freezing.
Yeah, I remember that. Like I went to a lot of shows in the winter in Chicago, and it's just like you don't want to be like jacked out in winter coats because you're going to be inside this hot venue the whole time. So like you're just out there waiting for them to open the doors, just freezing, like you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't want to be like over layered because it gets pretty hot up in there, especially in the mosh pits. But speaking of that, like one of my first ever mosh pits, and it was pretty rowdy.
Oh, nice.
It was crazy. Like and like being in there, just the whole experience of going to a show was cool. First ever. I mean, like I was 14, and seeing something live, especially like if you're like familiar with the music, you sing along, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
And you kind of get into it, and just the ambiance and everything, and the energy.
They were fairly new at that time too, right? Like they would only come out with one album, maybe at that time.
I believe they were like. I think they just came out with their second album.
Yeah, and they were both. Those first two albums were awesome. So
first one was the Frog Stomp.
Yeah, the Frog Stomp.
I didn't hear that until after the fact because when I went to this show, they were promoting their new album, Freak Show.
Yeah, Freak Show. Freak Show. Awesome. Yeah.
Their music was a little different though. Like they have their own sound definitely. I don't know whatever happened to them. Kind of just withered away. Like their music kind of just took a different
they did their third album, and it wasn't. I didn't feel it was as good. And then they kind of like there was a couple of good songs on it, but then like I feel like I didn't really hear much after it. Like it mustn't have done as well, and they must have lost fans or something, or they just broke up. I mean, some of these bands break up. You don't even know.
They might have just been like experimenting.
Yeah, they might have done different stuff too. Like for all I know,
fan base at the same time because I stopped by. Like I didn't buy that. It was something like Ballroom or something. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one with the year 2000 song or whatever. That was the third one.
Yeah, right. I remember that. But yeah, going back to the actual like show, it was cool. Like I think I took the Red Line or something. I took like CTA, and like this is all before like cell phones and stuff. Like this is like a simpler time before Facebook and all this crap. But it's like you meet me there at Vic. We did that, and I was new to like that area, Belmont. Bridgeport, like up there, like Belmont, all down that area. Boys Town was like nearby, and there was just like a lot of freaks out there. And, like, it was a little like little culture shock because I wouldn't even see that much of Bridgeport.
No, definitely not in Bridgeport.
And so we saw a lot of that and whatever. And that was quite an experience.
As a 14-year-old too, like it's like wow, this exists. Because Bridgeport's in its own little world, man. Even to this day.
It wasn't scary, but it was definitely different, and it was just like whoa. But it just went along with everything that was like included in the whole experience of going to the show.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
That was the first one, and like when the show started, I don't even remember who opened, but the show was awesome. Like I was familiar with the songs that they were doing. It was just like the energy. It was great. Like it was great to go to. I had a good time. I think I bought a T-shirt there at the table, and I think like some girl, like some foolish girl, like came with a rose, and like, "Who's a rose for?" She's like, "Oh, Daniel Johns." And I'm like, "Yeah, like he'll give you time of day." I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever."
Yeah,
throwing a rose up there.
It's like, exactly. Fans could be interesting. I'll tell you that much.
Well, yeah, I mean, she had her dreams.
Yeah. Oh yeah, crazy times, man. Yeah, I remember my first concert for sure. It's definitely an experience because like just to hear music at a venue is crazy because of the way like the music actually like vibrates through you because it's so loud, like it's just a whole different experience. Like,
Yeah, like I just like I do that. Also, I recall like when the show ends and just like going home with that constant ringing in your ears because it was like for like 2-3 hours of blasting music near the speaker, like
yeah.
kind of go deaf after a while. But I remember that just like ringing after you leave the event.
Yeah, that's a sign that your ears have been damaged.
What?
The things we do for music.
No, yeah, it's definitely like it was worth it.
Yeah, well, we're probably not going to live to we're 115 anyway. So
yeah, right.
But yeah, man, that's so Silverchair is cool, man. That's awesome that you got to see them. I never got to see them, so that I'd put that on my list that we'll talk about later as well. For I'd go back in time and probably check them out too. There's so many to talk about. We'll get to that part later too, but
yeah, totally.
there's just so many. But talking about another favorite show of mine, and a lot of these are fairly recent, probably because like, I mean, there's a lot of good ones in high school, but it's like, I feel like these festivals that I didn't really get to go to until college or just post college, like they were like a whole new experience because now I'm like an adult. So, just like in my 20s and stuff, like it was kind of a different experience than like when I was in my teens. But, this one, I gotta say that the 2013 Riot Fest, it was in September that year. And this is another multiple band fest, and the thing about multiple band fests is it just kind of leaves a memory because there's so many. There's just so much stuff going on, especially when it's a multiple day. And I got the 3-day pass that year, so I went to all 3 days of Riot Fest and was essentially just there all the time. It was also in Humboldt Park, which was just a like that's not the greatest place to be. So it's the neighborhood isn't all that good, but I could actually talk about that in a second too, because there's some crazy stuff that goes on there. But what's cool is there's it's supposed to be like kind of a punk thing, but they have a lot of different genres there and a lot of like old rock and hip hop as well. Like it kind of has like this legacy thing. Like they bring older acts that maybe you didn't even know toured anymore. But the festival itself was awesome because, you got food and drinks and all that stuff, but the variety of people, like, like random Clockwork girls just like kind of walking across the field like they're clock people, like, and then like they randomly stop and they like have like random people like wind them back up again and then they start walking again. Like it's just ridiculous,
So weird.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that because I've been around fest a couple times. So.
It might have just been this year. I don't know, because it is different a little bit every year. But like also at the one I went to, there was a giant butter bust of John Stamos. They called it the Butter John Stamos, and it was John Stamos' Uncle Jesse from Full House, like like just made completely out of butter, and then like this weird trailer that had a refrigerator in it, like. It was weird. It had like pictures of like Uncle Jesse in Full House, and then there was this butter bust, and I'm just like, what? Like, what? Why is this here? Like, just another thing to talk about. Like, it's just crazy. And then like Humboldt Park, like I said, like there's unfortunately a lot of homelessness there. A lot of drug addicts are in that park. So like it's pretty insane. It was actually pretty dangerous for people. And I think some people were mugged and attacked like during that time. Like we tried to stay just walking down, like when we were going back to the blue line, like we didn't cut through the park. We just went to the streets because it was a little safer, and there was more people around. But like some people walked through the dark park, and I'm pretty sure a bunch of people got mugged and attacked just from like crazy people. Like there's also like a hospital too, and there's like gang activity as well in that neighborhood. So you're constantly hearing ambulance sirens before you get into the grounds, because there's just ambulances going to that hospital like 24/7. Now, when you get into the grounds, it's kind of funny because it's so loud in there and it's like in its own little bubble that you almost forget where you are and you don't even know you're there. It's only when you're like going like in line and when you're like leaving that like you're like, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm supposed to be walking around here. Like, you know, there was literally people throwing bottles at us from like second and third floor windows on that street over the California street or whatever.
Yeah, they're pretty. That's one of the reasons I avoided Riot Fest, because they changed the venue to Douglas Park the 2 years I went to. I think it was 2016 or 17, but I went consecutively for 2 years, and they were both at Douglas Park, which is not that great. I mean, it's not. I mean, that area is a little sketchy too, but not as bad as Humboldt Park.
Yeah, I think that's why they switched it. Actually, people complained, and there were too many people getting mugged and stuff, and like attacked. Like it's just. Because think about it, like a lot of people going to this Riot Fest, they're not even from Chicago. So they're like naive. They're coming from like towns, for around the area, suburbs and stuff. Like they have no idea. And it's like, you should not be walking through that park late at night by yourself. Like just bad things are going to happen, like it's just the way it is. Like, but, like I said, while you're on the grounds, it was its own little world. And the music is what I remember fondly, man. Like I saw Odessa for the first time. She was really awesome. She's actually from the Minnesota area. She a fantastic, like she's really good at rapping, performing. She kind of has this lounge rock style to the beats that she uses. Very funky kind of a style. She actually opened too, so she was very early in the day, and there's not that many people there when you get there right when the grounds open. So like I was right up against the stage, like that was really cool. So I remember that, sometimes they have bands that didn't make sense there. Like I saw Stars there too. I saw Stars before. They're kind of like an indie kind of a band, but they were really good too. Like, I mean, they're a good band. So I was like, cool, I get to be up against the stage with them too early on. Atmosphere is one of the guys there, and Atmosphere always has a great show. Of course, another Minnesota guy. But like maybe one of the best people that I saw there, Peelander-Z, this crazy Japanese punk band. Have you ever heard of Peelander-Z? I also saw them again in Madison a few years later, and I will see them again if I ever see them on a thing. They're a punk band from Japan that has some great hits, such as Tacos, 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 Ninja High School, and a song where they literally just talk about the alphabet. They just go through the alphabet. But it's all fantastic. It's like it's just pure punk music, and it's really good. Like they're really good musicians. It's essentially I believe it's a husband and wife, and then they have some other members in the band too. And when I saw them at Riot Fest, it was the full Japanese band. When I saw them in Madison, there was a visa issue for like the drummer, so like they literally just got a random drummer. And a funny aside, like we talked to the drummer at the end of the show, and he was just like, yeah, man, like I got signed up to do this with them while they do this Midwest part of the tour. And he's like, I get to dress up like a green dinosaur and play drums, and these guys are nuts.
Yeah, that's awesome. The guy lucked out.
Yeah. Yeah, like that had to be awesome to just hang out with all them. Like they dress up like in different colors, like that's kind of their shtick. So like they're kind of like a superhero group from Japan. So like someone's dressed up like green with like a cape, someone's got like purple on. They have someone that's like dressed up as a monster too, usually one of the guys. And there's at the Riot Fest version, which is like their main version, they literally did a part where the lead singer chases this monster guy through the crowd, and then he like tosses him back on the stage through like bowling pins. and then he literally leaps on the stage and starts doing a guitar solo.
That reminds me of like there's Shonen Knife. They're like a girl band, Japanese girl band. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I haven't, but I could only imagine. Like I think Japanese bands just go like above and beyond like what we do. Like they just, especially when they get like there's a band called the Seatbelts. They do the soundtrack for like Cowboy Bebop, both the anime and the live action that just came out. And it's like some of the best jazz you'll ever hear, but it's got this crazy twist to it. And they're just all Japanese. And you're just like, like, I wonder how they got into like this American bebop jazz from the 50s. And they're doing it like it's like a new genre. Like, like it's just pretty cool.
Nice. Sounds interesting. No wonder it was memorable.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's crazy is another band here from Minnesota. They weren't playing at Riot Fest that year, the Hold Steady. They were literally just like, I saw them in the crowd. Like they were chilling, watching Peelander-Z, and they were totally having a great time just jamming out to Peelander-Z. And I was just like, they must have just been in town and thought, hey, we're going to check out this crazy Japanese punk band. Like,
awesome.
Yeah. So it's cool when you see musicians too, like, cause it's just like, they're fans like us sometimes. So like, they're just there like having a good time, and it's like, they're just like real people at that point.
Yeah, I do remember like running into like random like musicians that are at other like musicians venues, just, like underground, like rappers or musicians. I remember that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Also at that Riot Fest, the Public Enemy and they actually had Flava Flav there, so that was awesome. I had a lot of fun there. Flava Flav with his giant clock, being the hype man.
That had been a good show. I would have told to see Public Enemy.
Oh yeah, Chuck D was awesome, and then like at that time it was DJ Lord spinning the ones and twos. Like he was, it sounded good. Flava Flav's getting you pumped up the whole time, and it's just all their classics they played. It would have been cool to see the original lineup with like Terminator X and stuff, but there's nothing more you could ask for, especially since like, Public Enemy obviously was out, in the 90s and stuff too. So it's just like, and earlier. So it's just like, when you think about those bands, like when you get to see them and like, hey, I might never have a chance to see this band again. Like that's cool. Cause you feel like you're a part of something, but yeah, I mean, and there were many, many bands there, but just Peelander-Z and Public Enemy made it memorable for me. Like I just had a good time. I was in many mosh pits. The party guy, party, party, party. We got a party, and every single song is that same song. What's it? I forgot what I forgot Andrew WK or whatever. Like I think is his name. Like it's just every song is about partying hard. Like that guy's insane. He's there like every year, I think. But yeah, so what about you, man? What's another show that sticks with you all these years?
Well, like I was gonna mention one, but I'll save for like the one after. But like it reminded me this one show I went to see Jean-Michel Jarry, which was this like electronic French pioneer. From the 70s. Like
that's awesome.
My pops like threw him onto me, and I actually went to see it with him. And like you said, if I never get to see them ever, because it was the first ever U.S. show that he ever did.
That's awesome.
That was a big thing, and like people from all over, like Canada, all these French Canadians, and like I mean, it wasn't all French, but I mean, obviously, it was like the majority of the fan base was French and Canadian. Just came down. I think this was at the Auditorium Theater downtown.
Yeah.
And it was about 2016 or 17. But that was an awesome show. I mean, like that blew my mind. That's probably like up there, one of my top favorite shows that I ever been to. Just visually and like musically, it was like pleasing. Like it was awesome.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with his stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. Definitely cool. Like he pops up on my Pandora a lot because like I add like different people there, so like they add a bunch of different acts. So it definitely pops up on my Pandora a lot. I've never actually listened to like full albums or anything, but definitely a lot of the tracks. So that's pretty awesome. Like that you got to see. I always love seeing like those kind of obscure older acts. Like there's a lot of European guys that I would love to see that they never come to the US. So that's pretty lucky.
That's exactly why I jumped on the opportunity to see this guy. And he was like older, obviously, because he came in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like I said, one of the pioneers of
yeah. I mean, that's when
huh?
I was gonna say that's when like analog first came out, really. So like definitely a pioneer. Like,
yeah, no, and like at the show, like I remember this one thing, like he had this instrument. It was like a laser harp, and like
oh wow,
there were laser lights that would like shoot up into the ceiling, and like all the laser beams were each chord, and he was just like strumming them, and they were making all these crazy sounds. It was insane.
That's awesome. Yeah,
like I got like videotape of it. Like it was just like it was so awesome. I mean, it was just like beams of light that he was just touching and boom, boom, and making like sounds, making a track, and it was.
It's like a live equalizer.
It was mind blowing. Like it was just awesome, and he had some like weird, crazy guitar thing too. Like he was going, like he had all these like weird, crazy, like futuristic instruments. Like it was just awesome. I had a great time. I shook his hand like twice because I was up front by the stage. Like merci beaucoup, merci, merci. But that was awesome. Like I had a great time.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check out like just like because guys like that, like you know, usually if you listen to a full album, like there's kind of a concept going or an artistic thing happening. So I definitely have to listen to full albums, you know, instead of just a couple of tracks here and there, because it's probably a better experience.
Yeah, because I mean, he also had like a screen in the back, like projectors.
Yeah, I should try to find some YouTube. I bet there's some YouTube videos of like concerts and stuff. I should check that out.
Yeah, sure, yeah. And like he had a message too, like he was all about like saving the planet and that kind of thing. So like,
yeah,
it was all good. It was all positive message, and it was all like it was a great show. Like it's awesome, definitely memorable.
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, that's again, when you see a guy that's if you see any kind of band where it's like you don't normally see them because they're older or they're from somewhere else, it's kind of a special experience because it could be the only time you get to see them, like, so it's like you're in the moment and you enjoy it, and it always sticks with you usually, especially if it's good.
Yeah, I think like he did get like positive response of coming to the US. I don't know why he never came all his years. I think he just stood in Europe and like.
If they make enough money, they don't really need to. Like Royksop, I would love to see Royksop, but they never come to the US because they don't need to. Like, they sell out all the festivals in Europe and they make plenty of money.
Yeah, but like I said, he got a positive reaction from it, and at least I got to see him. Which like I said, it was like if you never get the opportunity, you might as well jump on.
Yeah, for sure, man. So another show for me here that is pretty memorable just because one, I hadn't seen Aesop Rock before. That's the show, but like I also was with some friends, and one of my other friends that I was with loved this band, so like he was really into it. Like he loved, and they're great. I mean, obviously one of the more lyrical rappers, of course, Aesop, but then you had Dan the Automator too, like one of the better producers. So overall, you have this great experience there, and you get really dope beats. Like, I mean, like all their music is really good. Like the music's fun, and because it's so kind of lyrical, like it's a little bit different of a show. You kind of feel like you're lost in this world, and not only are you kind of like jamming out to the tracks, but sometimes you are singing along just because they're so lyrical. Like I think I saw a graph where it's like more words than Shakespeare uses in those raps. So it's just like, there's so much stuff going on. But just chilling with some friends, like jamming out, having some beers. It was just a good time. The show was at the Barrymore Theater in Madison, Wisconsin. It was July 2012. He actually went to Madison a lot. So this was like the one time I got to go see him, unfortunately, just because it seemed like every time Aesop Rock came, it was like something was going on. I had to work, or I wasn't in town, or didn't have money, there's always something going on. So it was like finally got to go, and that venue is really cool because like the way that venue is set up, one, it's like an old theater, so it has a great sound. Like no matter where you are in that theater, it sounds good. And that's awesome because you can sit anywhere. But it's got seats, like theater style seats, like throughout, like in all these different aisles. And then there's like an area between the first row and the stage where, like, sometimes if depending on the show, they'll put other seats there, but in a show like this, they don't. They just keep the original theater seats, and then they have like this area, and they can fit like 10 or 15 rows like in this little area if they wanted to. So it's kind of a big area. So you can go sit there, and like if you see a rock band, you could clearly mosh in that area and all that. But like it's a pretty nice area to just go and stand and get close to the stage. And we were able to kind of work our way up to the stage, and they did, daylight, nightlight, and that was awesome. And they kind of did it together, and they had like a little bit of a screen in the back that kind of went with everything. That was really cool. They, no one shall pass, they did like, so that was awesome. It was just an overall pretty awesome show. It enters my mind as one. It kind of fairly simple too. I mean, it was just the artist and the music and nothing else really going on. I just remember like those types of shows always stick with me because I feel like they're more intimate in that instance where you're just kind of connecting to the music and chilling. And it's just like, you almost feel like you're not like, you don't really feel like you're at the show. You feel like you're a part of the show. So like, I always love that stuff. So.
Oh yeah. Like Dan the Automator, like he did a collab with Cool Keith. I actually have a CD. Have you ever heard it?
Yes. That's good too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was cool. I just wanted to check that.
Yeah, he did. And of course, Deltron, with Kid Koala. On an aside, it wasn't really a show, but I saw Kid Koala played at this there's a fest in Madison called Fete Marquette, and it's kind of like a faux French type thing, but it's like in this Madison like community neighborhood, and they have like art tents and food vendors and a music stage, but they also have like an area inside a tent where they like will play movies and different things. And Kid Koala was doing a show that day and randomly was like, oh, La Fete de Marquette, like I'm going to go do a DJ set randomly in this tent. And so it's like, wait a minute, Kid Koala. And it was a free thing. Like, so and he was dressed in a koala suit, and he was like, and it was like 95 degrees. It was like July, and he was just like, the reason why I'm wearing this hot thing is because I lost a bet. So, but he's just there doing like Moon River and stuff. Like, and you're just like, this guy's like, this is awesome. Like, like he did Drunk Trumpet and everything. And it's just like, it's hilarious because La Fete de Marquette, it's like this like neighborhood thing in Madison. So there's like a bunch of old white people, and it's just like they're dancing to Kid Koala. Like, it's like, wow. Yeah. So like, I'm just having a good time having some beers watching a free Kid Koala show. So yeah, that's kind of an aside because he did do stuff with Dan the Automator as well. But yeah, Aesop Rock definitely awesome. Definitely recommend seeing Aesop festival or intimate show, whatever. But moving on to you, what's another show that stands out to you?
Well, just to like go off your thing, like I saw Aesop Rock a couple times, which was cool. And another memorable but funny one was when I visited you in Madison and saw Naughty by Nature. That was insane. That was like so random. Like, what was that? What was like some festival there in Madison?
Yeah, that was at what Broadfest was going on.
Yeah, that was the state. I think so. Was it Broadfest?
There's so many. Oh, there's also the Capitol Festival. Where was? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was the Capitol Festival.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was the Capitol Festival. That's good.
And like stuff. Randomly, it was like Naughty by Nature.
Yeah,
freaking old and shit. But that was just a funny, memorable one. But the one I actually wanted to mention was like this Monsters of Art tour in 2000 I went to, and this was kind of like a special one because it really like got me into independent underground hip hop.
Yeah.
First ever like show. Maybe it was probably my first hip hop show ever, even because, like I said, when I grew up, I wasn't really into like rap that much, and like as I grew older, I kind of liked it, obviously, but like that, like Monsters of Art, like that was like because it was like fresh for me, like getting into that music, so it was all new, and I really didn't know what to expect. As I said in the other video that we did. I lived in Bourbonnais for 2 years. When I came back in 2000, back to Chicago, my buddies were already into like the independent hip hop scene, you know.
Yeah.
And just kind of turned me on to some of that stuff, some of the artists. So like we all went at the Metro.
Nice. Yeah, I've been to many shows there.
Yeah, I've been to many shows too at the Metro. But it was an awesome time. Like, you know, Atmosphere was there, Idea.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anticon, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Anticon.
Oh, yeah.
But a bunch of them were there, and, like, they were just doing just, like, a bunch of stuff. Like, there was a guy, I don't know who, he was, like, he looked like he just got off of work because he was in his suit, and he was just, like, freaking rapping on stage, like, and he was good. Like, I was like, oh, shit, this guy's, like, oh, right after work, I got a show to do. Like, I'm going to play some bars on stage.
Yeah. His meeting ran long, and he's just like, oh, got to go rap on stage now. Like,
around the show.
He's like, I'd like to go through these TPS reports, but I got to go rap on stage real quick.
It was insane. Like, it just goes to show that hip hop's not about appearance and what you wear, and like, it's all about skill and what's in your heart and stuff, and expressing yourself and stuff. So that was like totally like mind blowing, and just like seeing other artists like Dose One from Anacon, like he was just like this artsy looking, like
yeah.
He had his own little style. Like he did some like poetry, like slam type of thing, like a cappella, and like just like his old delivery, and everything was just like explosive. Like I was just like wow and awe, and like it was different, like rap hip hop, because you know, like I wasn't like into rap, and just you know, it just didn't really like appeal to me. But the way they were doing it with like their own like style and like you know, the words they used and just like everything, it just made you think. And the music, the beats, like they had awesome beats, like everything. It just meshed so well together.
Yeah.
And that was like pretty much the beginnings of like, you know, like me wanting to get into it and actually like, you know, making music and that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah,
I
for
thought
sure.
more and more with those artists, and that really was the pinnacle of me like diving into like hip hop. So it was awesome. I had a great time. Like I bought a lot of like CDs, like you know, just back like after the show, just you know, partying with my friends and just like bumping the new CDs that we just got on the ride home, and just you know having a good time. It's like you know that whole week, like I was just like it affected me like big time. I was just like, damn.
Yeah, especially since you were you were really getting into the genre for the first time. So like, I mean, that's like a whole thing. I remember that for myself for everything. You know, it seemed like every new genre that I started to get into, there was like a moment like that. Like I saw a show, or I just heard something like at a party or something, and then it was just like almost transformative. You know, it's crazy, especially when you go to a show and you're just like, you know what, like this genre like is calling out to me. You know, like you know, it's like
it might have been like one of the first times I'd been to the Metro, and the Metro is pretty huge. Like
it is, yeah.
Like the main floor is just huge, like stand up, and like there's an upper level where you can sit and stuff in the back, and just review like the main level, and you can see the stage in front. Like, it's a pretty awesome venue. It can get pretty packed, and like I remember days that like like when smoking was still like allowed inside. Like,
oh yeah, when you could smoke cigarettes inside. Yeah, that's nuts. Like the whole place would be. I remember going to shows and coming back smelling like an ashtray, and I didn't smoke cigarettes. You know, like
yeah. I mean, like me, I did smoke like growing up, like in my teenage years and like high school. Like I was like into cigarettes and smoking, so I really didn't like pay attention. Like it really. I mean, when I got older and quit, like I realized, damn, like I probably reeked of smoke and like just not realizing, just like smoking indoors, how horrible it was, and just like the difference when they stopped it, and like you know, I was just like, wow, like it's such even like being a smoker, it was still like pleasing because it just wasn't like clouds of smoke.
Suddenly you can breathe.
Like, it was nuts, you know, but I remember that was one of the times when like they just banned indoor smoking.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so let's do one more each of these, and then we can move on to other things. But you know, just another one that I want to call out. It's also from 2013, Madison, Wisconsin show, November of that year. So it was the winter. It actually wasn't that cold, I remember. So it was one of those weird mild Novembers, which we'll probably get a lot more of. But you know, I saw Beats Antique, and I don't know, like they're a pretty interesting band, you know, in and of itself. But during this time, TeslaCon was going on, and that goes on every year, and it's a steampunk festival. It's like a steampunk, you know, fest where everybody dresses up and they stay at this hotel, and there's like steampunk type events going on or whatever. Well, this concert was going on during this, so it was essentially steampunk themed. So people dressed up in steampunk costumes. Like I wore like this old hat, like with like I had one of those pocket watches and like some like airplane goggles, you know, like just like the like crazy goggles that they used to wear on like the Wright brothers planes and stuff. Like so like I had that going on and like weird, you know, steampunk like gear stuff all over me. So it's like, you know, so it's like you're dressing up for one and everybody's dressed up like that. So that's fun in and of itself. And then the band itself is kind of insane with their performance because they're like this electronica band, but they play real instruments when they do these stage shows. So there's a drummer and there's someone that does like guitar and like violin and synths. And then they have this woman who is essentially like she's just like a performer for them. So like she'll do like belly dancing and like do all these crazy dances. She'll wear like giant like antlers on stage and do these crazy things. And we'll do some vocals sometimes. And the theme is kind of like a gypsy carnival in hell. So it's just like this crazy, like they have like all these crazy lights and visuals, you know. So like that in and of itself is awesome. And like, you know, I love electronica music, but when you go to a show and they also play instruments like Thievery Corporation and stuff, like it makes the albums different from the actual live show, and it's like a whole new thing. Like I love that stuff. But like, you know, that essentially this show they had audience members go up and like spin a wheel. Like this was like mid show, and they had it like come on down, like it was like a carnival thing, and like, you know, there was like a crazy like inflatable tube guy like just like flying around, like, you know, like they had this like big like circus kind of a theme, like they had circus music going like like all this stuff. And but the wheel is like rigged, so when the person spins it, it like stops on open up the gates of hell, and then all of a sudden another crazy inflatable tube thing pops out, and it's like a demon, and then it's like crazy dubstep music and like flashing lights, and it's just like like with this devil, and it's just like and the thing is so big that it covers like the entire crowd, like so it's just like falling on top of you, like
smothering people.
Yeah, it's like it's definitely a trip, especially with the dubstep bass, you know, just like like it's just like insane, like just 5 minutes of that and you're just like it almost like gives you a buzz. Like you're just like, what just happened? You know, it's just. And like I went to a lot of shows at the Majestic. That's a pretty cool venue. I went to a lot of shows between 2008 and 2013 because the person who was like running the like setting up the shows and everything was really into going on Facebook and doing these contests where you win tickets. And I don't know why, but I kept winning. So like I got to go see a lot of random bands. Like I saw this band Papadozio, which was really good, and like some other random bands. And it's like I like rarely paid for tickets, like because I kept winning them in concerts. Like it was like, am I the only one doing this? But I kept winning, so like I'm not going to complain. That, you know, and they did other shows there too. Like they do like a decadence during New Year's Eve, which is kind of nuts. Like they have a, you know, they just kind of bring in a local DJ, but like the night starts out, they go by the decades. So it's like classical music and like you're, you know, sipping on champagne, and it's like a very classical, like early 1900s, like late 1800s, like New Year's kind of a deal. But then as the hours go, they move through the decades until like after midnight, it's essentially like modern dance music. But like it's, you know, they go through every decade. So it's like at some point you're in the 80s, then you're in like the 90s, and it's just nuts. Like that's kind of a trip. But like, you know, all those shows are great, but the Beats Antique show, man, like that's one I'll never forget because of those crazy theatrics. And they're good musicians, and it was just a fun show. I mean, like it's just one of those things. Like, I mean, again, like you're just in the crowd, and all of a sudden there's a crazy demon inflatable guy like dub stepping on top of you. Like, you know.
You've been to a lot of crazy shows, it seems.
Yeah. I definitely have. It's always a trip. Like it's insane. So what about you, man? What's another one for you as we finish up going through these shows?
I mean, I've got like plenty that obviously I can't mention, you know. But I guess I could say another one was at the Fireside Bowl,
Okay.
up in Logan Square, and this was probably like 2001. So I was back again with some underground hip hop, and this time it was Atmosphere, Sage Francis, and Idea, and Abilities, and that was an awesome show. That was like, you know, going to all these shows, because I've been to a lot of like Rhyme Sayers like shows, but this is like during the earlier times. It's like this is before they really got really really big and like somewhat mainstream, even though they're still underground and got their own label. Atmosphere, like these shows were like $10-15 a pop, you know, like to get it through, and like, which was awesome. And you know, nowadays it's like,
it's a lot more. It's a lot more expensive. I mean, festivals itself are going to run you $100 a day or more, and then just a regular show, like you'll be lucky to find a show under $50 now. You know. Yeah.
So and that was like, you know, I like going to shows like that, to like small little venues, and like especially back in the day, because obviously like, you know, admission fees were cheaper, but before they got all big and huge. Fireside Bowl was like a bowling alley, essentially, and they did a little few venues. It was really small. Actually, it was a small place, but we all jammed, you know, like smashed in there, and like they had a little bar that we didn't go into because we were underage. So we weren't like, you know, drinking at the time, at least not there. And like, you know, I remember like I had my backpack, because I always had my backpack with. I don't know. I was always on foot and just, you know, taking
that was a style back then too, though. Like you bring your backpack everywhere, you know, because you have all your stuff in it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it for like the fashion sense, but I did it because, you know, I put my stuff in there and carry it around, and like I just had like, you know, I was writing at the time, so I bring my notebook and I'd write curious places like randomly, and I'd carry my recorder, like tape recorder. You know, just in case, you know, if I want to record something. And so I had all this stuff with me, and they let me in with it. So I was like, cool. And like, I had recorded some of it on tape, like some of the freestyles.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Like it's some rare like recordings of the live shows. And that's memorable to me. Like that's what I kind of cherish. It's like, it's like a bonus, you know, to have something like a memorabilia memento to bring back with me. And I had bought a wax. It was it was the show for Idea and Abilities, their first the Firstborn album they were promoting, and I actually got up on that like CD and the instrumentals, the Wax records, some instrumentals records.
Yeah.
And my friend Chris like had turntables, so I'd always bring him over there, and we'd like freestyle over all these instrumentals, and that was one of them. So I like stacked up on like music and recorded some, and the whole experience was awesome. Like I had a great. I went with my buddy Danny. I kind of turned him into like some of the independent hip hop that I was like into at the time. Still am, like because he was mainstream. He was more like Tupac and all that stuff, which is cool. I love Tupac.
Yeah.
But it was another memorable show, the Fireside Bowl, and I remember another thing. We were waiting in line, and like Sage was just like in line with us, like. Well, I guess he was just like scoping out, see what was going on,
Yeah.
And, like, she was just like landing there, and like, oh, hey, Sage, just like
that's
like,
awesome.
Get low and like get closer to the doors. I mean, that's just one of the things I like about the shows, those type of shows where it's more intimate and like you actually run into somebody like artists that you're a fan of. And just, have small talk with them and just shoot the shit. It's more real. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what makes that stuff good. That's why I love little venues, right? Like little venues are awesome because of that. Like, High Noon Saloon was one in Madison when I lived there, and a lot of times you get to talk to the artists afterward and stuff. So, I got to talk to a lot of guys, especially when you go up and buy their CDs and stuff. Like, they're more likely to chill with you because there's not as many people there. So they'll shoot the shit with you for a couple minutes there, and like you get to like have a conversation, that's awesome. Like,
that's part of the experience, and like they're always like, that's the thing, like you'll find the artist at the Merc table like selling their stuff. Like you're gonna run into somebody as you go to the merchandise table and like buy some stuff. Like you said, just have a couple words with them. And just, I always have small talk with them, and that I don't want to bother them.
Yeah,
just a typical fan, like, oh my gosh, but like dig your stuff and just go on my way and just not be a pest. Show my support. So yeah. I mean, I got so many shows that I have got down that I wanted to mention, but it's okay. Like we can have another video.
Man, we could do many podcasts on all the shows. Like it was hard for me to narrow down. That's like I kind of picked a kind of a style, but there's so many memories and things. Like even shows where like it was just free shows that I didn't even expect to see people there. Like and it was like wow. Like Madison used to do these summer shows like by the lake all the time, and I just saw so many random bands. And like just stuff that like I'm not sure that I would have found if it wasn't just like at this random festival. So like those things are pretty cool too. But yeah, we could go on for out. Like this podcast would still be going 6 days from now.
Like the NCAA will be over and we'll still be talking.
Yeah, exactly. Because the final is going on as we record this. So yeah, moving on to shows or festivals that we would go to if we had a time machine that could take us anywhere in the past. I always love this exercise. It's always fun. I have a couple of random things to go through here, but for me, I would definitely go to like the bebop era of jazz because like who doesn't want to go to some like random club and like see some crazy like jazz, like New York in the 40s. You had like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. Charlie Christian, Thelonious Monk, Max Roach, Kenny Clark, those guys, like that bebop movement, very similar to early hip hop, of course, at the time, as like it was like this kind of a new thing. And it was this thing that the artists were doing that was like, we're not doing this for commercial purposes. Like we're doing this for us. Like this is the music of the musicians, essentially. So it was a lot of like, almost freestyle in terms of the music. So like they just kind of like just went through and played a bunch of things. So it's like, so it's like you'd hear a song and it would be different every single time you heard it because they were always changing it and just jamming out, So it's like, I'd love to go there, like sip on a couple martinis, at a club, just listen to some of the best musicians for like hours and hours. Like I'd get lost in those clubs, and then just traveling through the ages too, 50s and 60s, see Miles Davis and those guys. That would be awesome. I mean, a lot of those guys they use hip hop samples now too. So it's like clearly they're influences for everyone. Like it's just, the style of music that they were doing is just probably still being used today. I just think it'd be awesome to also have a conversation with them because like based on stories, like when you talk, like if you went to those clubs, like all the musicians would be hanging out and someone might not even be on the bill to go on, but they just randomly were at the club and they're like, you know what, I'm feeling it. And they like would bring their trumpet or sax or something on stage. And it's just like, they'd just jam out to, and then they'd be chilling at in the club itself. And you could go talk to them if you wanted. And it was kind of obviously not the greatest time for racial tensions, but there was clearly, white and black people at these clubs too. So it was kind of like its own little thing. And I would definitely be one of the people that would go up and talk and hang out and just listen to some of these crazy songs that probably aren't even recorded now. Like there's songs that they never recorded. Like, the stuff we know now was recorded or like put on an album. There's hundreds of tracks that they just played at a club, never recorded, and I would just love to do that. And of course, like the original Woodstock would probably be another place because why not? See Jimi Hendrix doing some crazy stuff on stage would be pretty sweet. But he did the pledge of or the he did the Star Spangled Banner or whatever that like everyone plays. Like it just would be nuts to be at that festival. And then Harlem Cultural Festival would be pretty sweet. They that was in that Questlove documentary. If I don't know if you saw that or heard of it, but it was going on the same time as Woodstock. And like Nina Simone and like BB King and stuff would play. Like one concert was like Nina Simone and BB King. Like how awesome would that be? Like it's just like that's pretty sweet. And then individual shows. I mean, come on, like I could go down the list, and I'm sure you're probably going to have a couple of these same ones, like Beastie Boys. Like I never got to see them live, and I would love to go see them. Nirvana, of course, I'd love to see Nirvana. And now unfortunately with the Foo Fighters, the drummer passed away recently, which sucks a lot. Like that kind of ties in. Dave Grohl, of course, was on Nirvana. A Tribe Called Quest, like the original, never going to see that again, unfortunately. Rush, because Neil Peart passed. Like a lot of these bands, like people have passed. Like I said, Jimi Hendrix, the original Ramones, like that would be awesome to see live. I would also like to see things like I'd love to see the Smiths before Morrissey messed it all up, like I could probably go on for days listening to these bands too, but it's just like there's so many, man. Like I'm just gonna turn this over to you because I'm sure you have like all kinds of crazy thoughts on this, but like what for you, like what are the few hands down, if you had a time machine, you're going to see? Like what are shows that you just wish that like you could like be there?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, you pretty much mentioned like 70% of my list.
I know, man, but it's
go back in time, I'd like to go to Woodstock, man. That would have been an experience to see Jimi Hendrix and all those other like musicians that I can't even name right now. I mean, like just the whole culture, and the time of living. I would have been out there for sure. We can camping out for days, like like being a hippie and whatnot. Like you said, the Smiths, the original Smiths, because I've seen Morrissey on his own, and I can't necessarily say he destroyed it, but yeah, I mean. Like he did that. Like he's got his own solo career, which was pretty successful. Which I love, like a lot of his songs. The Smiths as a whole back in the '80s, like I would have love to go back into like the old discos, because there's videos of them like doing live shows in discos, like discotheques and stuff, and like I would want to them for sure. Beastie Boys, like you said, and like that brings back to one of the lists the shows, memorable shows that I was going to mention, which was Lollapalooza.
Oh yeah,
and that was like Lollapalooza. That was the only time I ever went to Lollapalooza, and the only reason I went to Lollapalooza is to see Beastie Boys. Unfortunately, they had to cancel that year because one of them had that cancer of the throat and had issues. The one who actually finally passed away. Adam Yacker, I forgot what his name.
It was Adam. Like, so sad.
But like, that, like, I mean, I saw other like groups like Jane's Addiction and all that, like but that was like the main reason I bought a ticket, because I wanted to see them. And the Time Machine draws me back. I could have went back to the '80s when they first like blew up, and see one of those shows would have been awesome.
Oh yeah, at the CBGB, man.
Like, the CBGB. Go back in the '60s, '70s to see the Beatles, like one of their shows.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun too, for sure.
I would have been totally down for that. Africa Bambaataa, like when hip hop was starting to like kind of take shape.
Yeah.
Like Kool Herc and all
that. Yeah.
Even Michael Jackson, like I never been to a Michael Jackson show. Like I would have wanted to like see one of his shows, because I'm a fan of his, no matter like what people think of him or what he did or not done. That has nothing to do with his music, his like, personal life. Unfortunately, him passing away too. So I never got to see him. I would want to see him, like him in his prime doing a moonwalk and shit. Like
that'd be crazy.
The Ramones, like you said, although like the show that I did go to that was memorable, I have a poster here. Marky Ramone was one of the drummers. Did a show called Marky Ramone's Blitzkrieg. He had a couple group members come in, and
nice.
One of the former lead singers of this guy was called Michael Graves, the Misfits, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And that show was because they did like a bunch of Ramones hits, and that was at the Bottom Lounge on Bay Street.
Nice.
And that was cool. I went with my Uncle General. Even though it wasn't the full group, like I still had a great time. Like it was the nostalgic like vibe of hearing the old songs and just having a good time. So but there were Ramones, like you mentioned. The Doors. Like I would have wanted to see the Doors.
Yeah.
Like,
it'd be crazy to see Jim Morrison for sure.
Nirvana for sure. Like, I mean, he was like, and I was too young to go to a show when he blew up, man. Like, I wish like someone would have like dragged me along or something, because like 91, 92, I was like 10 or 11. Like, I mean,
that's too bad. I was even younger, so yeah.
Like, totally Nirvana. The jazz thing, like, or even go back to like the Rat Pack times and go see
go see the Rat Pack
or something, and like see the Rat Pack.
See Dean Martin just wasted. Sammy Davis Jr.
Good old Dino. I mean, there's so much to mention. I can't even like think. Like, I would even take like a time machine, like fictionally, to like the '60s and meet Marty McFly. Doing Earth Angel.
That new sound you're looking for.
What did they say? Johnny Be Good or something?
Yeah, Johnny Be Good. Yeah, from Chuck Berry. And it was his cousin or whatever that was like working that high school for some reason. Like,
I'll go see Marty McFly freaking
before he disappears on stage. Yeah. Get a glimpse of the wild-eyed scientist, like
Doc and like freaking Marty's father.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's
but
good stuff.
I think that's about it that I can think of. Like I said, you mentioned a whole crap load that I was going to say, and like, it seems like back then, man, there was just a lot of great music. Like,
yeah, for sure, there's so much. Like, it's crazy to think. And I don't know if it's just because we're living in these times, so it's hard to like. There's good stuff, a lot of indie stuff that comes out, underground stuff, and there's stuff I like that's new all the time. But yeah, it just seems like those eras kind of had a lot more. But maybe that's just because we look back on them. So I don't know. Like, maybe it'll be different when we're older, but not sure.
Yeah, because I can't really see like music on any like further shape. Like, it's all been done mostly back in the past, and creating new genres and whatnot. It's just it's pretty limited because a lot of stuff's been done.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like remixes of old genres now, I would think.
I can't imagine just the songwriter like not trying to come up with something that someone had already come up with, like, sound wise. You know what I mean? Like,
it's very difficult.
You're biting this guy. That kind of thing. It's like it's got to be.
That's why copyright is also interesting because of. Like, it's like, what can we copyright? Like, there should be limits to it now because it's just like, how do you make something that's not, that somebody can't say, that's my sound, like, it's like, right. Okay, like, you might not have been even trying to do it. You might have technically come up with it in your head, but it exists somewhere already,
Really, like, yeah. Like, there's nothing, it's hard to get, like, original. I mean, because everything sounds almost the same, or everyone's biting each other. Much.
Yeah. I think just being yourself is as original as you can get, but it's going to have influences and similarities for sure.
Yeah, I guess that's why they got styles in certain genres, and everyone's style and sound. So,
yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy for sure. But yeah, so going through these is always good. I thought before we go, I'd throw on some beats and just have you lay down a couple of bars and see where it goes. Are you down for this? You up for this?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a little drained, but yeah, I'll see what I could do. I'm down.
Let's throw some random stuff on here and see what happens.
Let's get crazy.
All right, I'll throw this one on first. It's some of these kind of just go through. They're all rough beats, so they're kind of just there. Like, I don't have my thing set up where I could just have them in a loop, but just like do whatever, and we can stop whenever, or I'll edit whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, man, hit it. Yeah, getting a little slow on the tempo. But that's okay, because it's to and fro. When I hit that tempo, you'll be KO'd so easily. But I'm not trying to get all violent on one person, this person. I'm just trying to keep the peace. It's a peace of mind that I unleash, and I define the definition when I'm pulling the ignition of turning the key of life. When I see a gas that's been higher than my gas bill, kind of crazy that we're living in these times of oil. And fighting in wars. Another Cold War, World War III, is that going to come before? I don't really know. A current event, leaving these people bent out of shape and taking the shape of a shapeshift has been drifting off through these curtains. They're opening the windows with sunlight peeking through in this darkness of time. And I thought you knew the tree of the clouds will never chime at the diamond sound of these horn trumpets coming through. That means a higher calling comes for you. Judging by the cover, I discovered that this brother of mine wants to hear my recording. Am I affording anything else when there's nothing but balls of lint in my pocket? Looking at the socket of my eyeballs, if I have a third one that calls, it's blinding me. I got a blinding see. I got a seesaw that I can see through the play line. And I see a friend of mine, a familiar face that I can define, and I can combine myself with different lines when I'm slipping and sliding like Ghostbusters times and hitting people. And I don't know, it doesn't make sense because the things don't make sense when you're freestyling. It just goes on and takes another shape.
Yeah. This actually, what's funny is this reminds me of those times we used to sit in a circle and everybody would freestyle some random stuff, and then like random people would come sometimes, and then they'd start to freestyle, and then like you would like put them to shame. Like it was always like you and Fagin and them, you know, like it's like
then it's like then like someone would start battling.
Yeah, it's like there'd be like a battle, but it was just like, they'd come in battle but lose. Like it's like if you're gonna start a battle, win. Like.
I saw that a lot. That's like coming out of the hip hop shows, like people be all hyped up trying to like start battles after the shows, or just like forming ciphers like in the crowd out there. They're just trying to freestyle, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. All right, let's do this last one there. This one's more kind of it's a little different for sure. The drums will come in soon.
Yeah, hearing the drums. I see the hummingbird is just sucking on the plums into the garden. That's what I'm starting. A fire starter. I'll never be cursed. I'll just be hanging by the tree with Mr. McGruff doesn't create forest fires enough, and I just hear the dandruff trickling down into the ground. That's how my hearing senses as I finish the sentence. I'll see another dentist into the future to clean my dentals. But right now, I'm just gonna have a rental of your mind and your ears so that you can never hear and switch up the gears of this clock as I switch and I tick and I cock of this thing called hip hop. But you can create a different type of genre, subgenre, hip hop. I don't know, just Dennis Hopper and another movie. I want the sun to get a nice tan. Got another beer, nice cold one in one hand, and then in the other. If I had a third one, I would be born into a movie of Total Recall, holding triple breasts, multiple breasts. I might just create a cardiac arrest of those that'll step me. If you're giggling in the background, it's all good. It just makes me look good. I'm gonna put this hoodie on top of my head so I don't catch a drip, catch a cold. Look the mold build up and trickling down in the spider's webs. I take a deep breath. People are rocking those kegs, getting all dirty, white and shiny, keeping them clean, doing the gangster lean. These crap fiends ain't gonna get nothing from me. Not gonna get a penny from me, cause they're just allergic to copper like Phil, Tom Green, Elliot. I just know that I can feel this. MTV. Previous shows, I must go and blow the horn till the fat lady sings. Yeah, did she ever sing? Did she ever lose weight? That would switch up things that wouldn't sound so great. Paint spraying, paint on the freight train, graffiti. I might give a couple of coins to the needy. They really gain my trust. We'll go spinning out some blues. I'm like, damn, you lose. You wanna be a winner. Don't be a sinner. A lot of application. I feel like I'm correct. Give me the tips. I'm not the perfect person. This person needs advice. Let me rip. Let me skip until the pound that I might be on people's dimension of life. You can't get on that. It doesn't matter. You know, you might take a knife and stab someone in the back. So don't even trust yourself. You might laugh. Make the right here. Have a nice Monday. Finish my beer. Peace.
bringing the fire. We love it. Gotta love it. It's good stuff.
I'm trying.
I feel like you felt that one a lot. You kept going on strong there. Like it was a lot of bars you were spitting on that one. Like I was like, oh man, like he did like 2 verses. Like,
Yeah, I mean, once I get in a groove and whatnot, I mean, I start feeling it and just see where it takes me. Yeah, that last track was cool. I guess I had to get it warmed up a little bit, and who knows. Like I said, it's been a long day, and my brain's just not working right now. So
yeah,
hard to think. Freestyling as it is difficult.
It is difficult. It is definitely not a skill that I mean, like I mess around and try with it all the time, but it's definitely not a skill that I'd put at the top of my list. So, like,
there's always room for improvement, even for myself.
Yeah, there's it's something that I kind of do. I do a lot by myself. We talked about this last time before. Like, that's kind of how I usually start my writing process is doing some freestyle. It's definitely an exercise that you should do, even if you don't think you're good at it.
No, I do it all the time. I mean, I'll be like, especially if I'm by myself, and that's when some of the best rhymes come. Like, I'm just like, damn. Of course, no one's around here, but who cares anyway?
It's like your brain can think better too when you're by yourself. Like I always notice that too. Like, but it's like, oh, my mind just went blank because people are here. But when no one's here, like I'm just like, oh man, I did like 20 bars in a row. Like, like, it's just the way it goes.
It's definitely different, the atmosphere of when there's people present and when you're alone.
That's why rap battling is its own thing, man. It's tough to win those. Like,
those are extremely hard.
Yeah, you got to get the crowd into it too because they vote for you.
Yeah, you got to get the crowd on it. You really got to like be on point. It's a lot of pressure. It's pretty stressful.
Yeah. It's definitely an art in and of itself. That's for sure.
Hell yeah.
Well, man, it was definitely fun again having you on. Good for you to geek out with some music too. Like, do some freestyles. Like, it's fun times.
Yeah, I always love freestyling. I mean, I can't say like that was my best, but
yeah,
like I said, there's no excuses. And it is the end of the day. But you know what? We can do it again, and we can always have fun. It's all good.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like we'll definitely be doing it again at some point. That's all I gotta say.
Hell yeah!
But yeah,
collabing and stuff. Yeah, I got a collab and all that too.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it'll be cool. We should do some collaborations again too. Like people don't know, we have a couple stuff that we did together on our SoundCloud too. March of the Damned is a song that I did the beat for. We have some other random stuff. We have some stuff that like we never released too that I'd love to go back through as well. But all this new stuff, like we got to come up with something. We should do some tracks together. It'd be super fun. I'm sure everyone would enjoy that as well. But yeah, man, thanks to everyone who's been listening and supporting the SunDried Tomatoes podcast and YouTube channel. Thanks to everyone who subscribed and downloaded the podcast. And to all of those who subscribe to the YouTube channel. This wouldn't be possible with all of your support, and I really do appreciate it. And thanks again for Marc for joining me on this awesome journey of music. Until next month, salut.
Peace.